This is the Atlanta Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hi everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick with the Atlanta Small Business Show. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today we're very excited to have back with us Ms. Blake Morgan, and she is the author of The Customer of the Future, 10 Guiding Principles for Winning Tomorrow's Business. Thanks so much for joining us, Blake.
Jim, I'm so pleased to be back with you today. Thank you.
Sure, you're like the customer experience expert out there. I know that you speak and you're a writer and you're all over the internet. So I know you're a very busy young lady. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend with us here. Tell us a little bit about the motivation behind the new book.
So since I wrote my first book, which you interviewed me for, I wanted to write a book about technology because I kept getting asked to talk about technology. I was asked to teach about it at Rutgers and write about it and talk to various groups about it. So I actually had a book deal to write a book about technology. But something happened when I started doing my interviews for my book. For example, I interviewed the chief technology officer for Sephora, and I wanted to talk with him about technology. But he had no interest in talking with me about technology. He wanted to talk to me about a Sephora customer that walks into the Sephora retail store and she has terrible acne, and all she wants is for her skin to clear up so she can relax and go to parties and not have to worry about being mortified by the state of her skin. So what I'm talking to you about is the human experience.
Yeah.
And so many companies are still not achieving just the table stakes of treating their customers like human beings.
That's right.
And that's the impetus for this book, The Customer of the Future, because companies still need help. And they need help with the things that we all think we know, but we just don't do well. Like, how do we have a customer experience mindset across the entire organization? And so my 10 principles hit technology, but they also hit things like mindset, culture, leadership development, and we can talk more about that in the interview. But that was really the reason for the book, was that most companies still are terrible at customer experience, and they still need to do a better job with just the basics.
So let's drill down a little bit. Who, as it relates to the book, who is the customer of the future?
So the customer of the future is already here. She's getting incredible, easy, seamless experiences from companies like Netflix or Spotify or Apple products or Amazon. And then she goes to do business with her cable provider, her insurance company, her hospital. And she's very frustrated because clearly there's a big gap between companies that are doing experience well and companies that still are not even achieving those table stakes I mentioned.
Right.
And so that the customer of the future, she expects those seamless, zero friction customer experiences where the company knows who she is, what she wants, where she is in their various environments, such as the website, the app, the in-store experience. And so companies need to do a better job of what they're doing actually inside the company to accommodate this customer that is getting this huge gap in customer experiences.
It's all about personalization today, isn't it?
It is, Jim. As I say your name, Jim. Isn't that nice though when someone
Very
knows your
nice
name
touch.
because it's
Yes.
so rare?
It certainly is. It certainly is, Blake.
Yeah, thank you. And when a company deals with the customer, the problem is the data. And when a customer reaches out to a company and gives them their personal data, they expect that company to remember, like an elephant, who they are, what they want, what their preferences are. And they are getting that from some companies, but not enough. And that's the problem with personalization, is we still have far to go, because sending an email with someone's first name, Jim, is not personalization.
Yeah.
I think Amazon does it really, really well.
Yeah.
And it's not just knowing who the customer is, but also allowing them to practice self-service, to help them help themselves. And I think that's what Amazon does really beautifully.
Sure. What you're talking about, does it cost businesses more money to do?
What's interesting, Jim, is that a lot of these practices that I write about in my book are free.
Wow.
Mindset. We all as individuals have mindsets where we either wake up in the morning excited for the day, excited to challenge ourselves and do our best, or maybe we wake up in the morning just annoyed and we want to shut the curtains and go back to sleep. It's the same with the company.
Sure.
Some companies have the mindset. Every employee is excited to serve that customer like Amazon or even Nordstrom. But other companies, customers are just a pain in the rear. They don't want to deal with customers. And that's really the difference, is the mindset. And that's absolutely free. And then we get into other free areas like culture and even leadership development.
Yeah.
And when I've said this in the past, some people push back and they say, hey, Blake, well, some of these things aren't really free, but they're not expensive. What is expensive is a technology stack. These are the things that companies get wrong. It's the psychological pieces, mindset, culture, leadership development. They might not be completely free, but they're very cheap and extremely rewarding.
And you know what's really expensive is when the experience of that company is not a good one, right? Because now you're losing customers. Sometimes you don't even know why you're losing the customer. And it's because of the culture that you've built inside of your own business that's flowed right down to the customer, right?
It's interesting. I was traveling last week with my husband, and we went for breakfast 2 mornings to the same hotel in Philadelphia. And the first morning, the waitress, she was seriously the nicest, most service-oriented, happy waitress I've ever encountered in my life. I wanted to take her home with us. She was so wonderful. And then so we went back to the restaurant for breakfast the next morning, and we had the worst waitress. She was running and taking our order. We would ask for something, she would forget it. She just didn't seem to want to be there.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting to me. It's just this variation across these companies where you just have basic this idea of being service oriented.
Right.
But often these good employees, they're not rewarded or incentivized. I'm pregnant, so I go to the doctor a lot, and I had to have my blood drawn yesterday, which happens when you're pregnant. And the woman, I know her because I'm there so much. One of the 2 women that work the front desk, one of them is so sweet, so lovely, so empathetic, so kind, so patient. I love seeing her. The second woman, she doesn't even look up when you come and greet her at the front desk. She treats you like a number. She doesn't treat you like a human being. I said to the first woman that I really like, you do such a great job here. You should be training everyone. And I said, do they incentivize you here, or do they reward you? And she said, yes, with more work. And so I think that's the problem with these companies that don't have the culture of employee experience. They're not retaining their good people, because when you work hard, you're just given more work. And so I think that is really a missed opportunity for many of these big companies. It's really just the human element for employees that they're missing.
There's no question about it. And treating the employee right has got to come first. It can't come as the byproduct of a customer that gives a good review, or customers like yourself that go back to the medical practice and say, hey, that person's outstanding, they've done a great job, right? It's really backwards. You've got to take first really good care of your employees. A, they're not as apt to leave you, and B, they're more prone to create happier customers.
Absolutely. And actually, my roommate wrote a book called The Employee Experience Advantage. Well, he's not really my roommate. He's my husband and the father of my daughter.
You went from roommate to husband and father. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Shout out to Jacob Morgan. And he wrote a book about employee experience. I study customer experience. He's doing employee experience. So we always have a lot to talk about. And he did research for his book where he did a study of 252 companies, global companies. And what he found is that the companies that invested in employee experience, so how people feel at work, these companies were 4.2 times more profitable than companies that did not.
Wow.
And they did this by investing in 3 areas: culture, technology, and physical space. And I think what the employee experience advantage teaches us is that your employees are your customers. And if you want to improve your customer experience, the first stop is simply improving the experience of the people who you see at work every single day.
We spend more time, for the most part, with the people that we're working with than we do even with our own families in many cases.
It's so true, Jim. It's so true. And I think often the culture is just such a missed opportunity, because we all know when we feel good at work, we're happy at work, we produce better work. We'll go above and beyond for a customer. But often you go to, let's say, a retailer, and you can see the employee clearly doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
They're miserable. It absolutely, as a customer, makes you feel bad. And then you feel sorry for that poor soul who's clearly stuck in a job they hate.
That's right.
And so the culture piece is one of the most undervalued pieces of a customer experience strategy.
It always reminds me of the postal worker, right? That they're there behind the desk and it's a long line and they just can't wait to throw that piece of wood up that says next window because they're on break right now. And meanwhile, it's you've got all of these people that are needing service and to have those associates that just can't wait to throw up that block that says, pick another line, we're closed. And it always, I don't know why, that always gets to me. I'm thinking, here's all of the customers that make up the post office, and make you guys run, and yet you just want to throw us out the door to private carriers, right?
Yeah, it's really a shame. And I actually wrote a Forbes article that I don't think the U.S. Postal Service is going to be here for that much longer. Some people are angry about that, but it's basically survival of the fittest.
I know.
If you are not making customers' lives easier and better, if you're not creating efficiencies for the sake of your employees and your customers, you're not going to be around. You can be an establishment that's been here for hundreds of years. It doesn't matter anymore. I believe that customer experience, it's the great leveling field of our time.
So talk to us about the future of customer experience technology.
Right. So in the past few years, we've seen this new category, and I'm not going to talk too much about the technical aspects of a customer experience cloud.
Okay.
Because I think your viewers might fall asleep. But the point is that because our data is changing and the way we share data inside of our organizations, we're seeing the growth of something called the customer experience cloud. We used to have different ways we stored data. We store our marketing data in one department, our customer service data in another department. That no longer will suffice. So now we're seeing the growth of the customer experience cloud. Customer experience technology as a category is growing by leaps and bounds. And in the book, I have all the statistics, but the category is going to be worth billions of dollars in the next few years because clearly technology isn't everything, but a company's ability to have clean data, to know who their customers are, to use things like analytics to actually predict the future, because we couldn't do that before, but thanks to machine learning and AI, now we can actually predict customer behavior and preferences in the future. These have huge implications for companies and the investments they need to make in their technology stack.
Tell us how a company can shift from being a product focused one to customer focused.
So it's very easy to be internally focused. I'll even use the word narcissistic. And I used to work at a Fortune 500 company, and all of the jargon at that company, it was like living on a different planet.
Oh, for sure.
If you were a customer sitting in on our meetings, I think your eyes would have been crossed by the end of the meeting.
Right.
And the point is that we can no longer be so internally focused as companies. We need to think, what is it like for the customer? Who cares about our legacy, all of the ways we've done business in the past? What are the ways that we can make customers' lives easier and better? How can we create efficiencies inside of our companies? And I think that being customer focused over being product focused is one of the hardest things for most companies to do. It's that legacy, it's heavy, and that they need to be more nimble, more agile if they want to achieve that velocity that they need to compete in today's modern business world.
Yeah, I can't agree more. It's the old adage of the ivory tower. The workers at corporate just aren't in tune with what's happening on the showroom floors in many cases, or in the stores or in the restaurants of a chain or whatever the case might be, and they start to lose that touch, right? It's very, very important that the people making decisions at the company that affect the customers and that affect employees are actually working with customers and employees, right?
That is so true, Jim. And some of the most modern and successful leaders today, they're so humble. They're not above going into the factory and meeting people who work there. Even Elon Musk, say what you will about Elon, he sits in the middle of his engineers in the factory working at Tesla. And he's an incredibly customer-focused CEO who
right.
You can even send Elon Musk a tweet. Like there was one example of a customer on Twitter who wanted dog mode. So they wanted their Tesla to be parked and be comfortable for their dog who would stay inside the car with temperature, and also a sign on the dashboard to let onlookers know, hey, this dog is okay. Don't worry about this dog left in the car. That idea of dog mode went into production, and now if you have a Tesla, I believe you can put your Tesla into dog mode.
Wow,
So the modern CEO, the modern leader, extremely humble,
right,
really big on listening, not above being on the factory, on the ground, meeting employees and meeting customers every single day.
We spoke to one company owner. They have 1,000 employees, and they've got retail shops all over the Southeast. And he told me that he starts his day before he reads his emails or anything else, but he starts his day calling 10 customers that the business and the company did business with in the last 48 hours. And he calls them directly. He's got their email, or not their email, but their phone number. And he, they're scattered throughout the Southeast. And he picks up the phone, he calls them on their cell phone, introduces himself as the CEO of XY company. And first they're blown away that they're getting this call. But then he says, if you were in my position, how could you make the customer experience better than it was for you? And he said more times than not, it couldn't be better. It was great. I loved it. He said, but then every now and then I'll get somebody that'll give me a really good idea to say, well, here's what I went through and here's how I suggest you correct it. He said, and sometimes, those are the best ideas that we bring into the boardroom and board them up,
Oh, that is so brilliant of that CEO that he makes that time every morning. It's a gold mine.
He said, the call takes me about an hour each day in the morning. He said, but what I get back from it is just incredible.
Right, because that's a gold mine of customer feedback. And that's actually another missing link for companies where they don't put customer service and engineering together.
Right.
But companies like Slack, the software company, they actually now sit their customer service folks near engineering. So there's this constant feedback loop of ideas.
That's a good idea.
And I think this is the future of good customer experience, is providing that loop from the customer's mouth back to the people who actually have the power and influence to make changes to the products and services offered.
Well, Blake Morgan, author of Customer of the Future, 10 Guiding Principles for Winning Tomorrow's Business. It is a must read for all business owners, and certainly one that, first of all, customer experience should be at the top of every business owner's list for 2020, how to make it better, because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be all about.
That is the number one differentiator today. So many of our products and services are the same. You want to stand out from that sea of sameness, it is customer experience that will help you do that.
Blake Morgan, thanks so much for joining us again on the Atlanta Small Business Show. We very much appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back to talk more about these very topics.
Thank you so much, Jim. Anytime, I'd love to.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Atlanta Small Business Show. ASBN is a part of the JBF Business Media family.